Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm really pleased that you could join us today. We're now doing our last Silver Linings for the year. This is Silver Linings 7, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Bring in some music to that. So this forum, our Silver Linings program, has allowed us to connect with our fellow museum educators and public programmers to discuss the impact of COVID-19. And the ENVi committee are hoping to discover and suggest some positive ways that we can all get through this together. So I know I've found a lot of solace in being able to reach out to my peers at different institutions and commiserate together and learn things from each other. And it's something that we wanted to share across our group. So I encourage you, if you've got ideas for other Silver Linings programs and that, to please let us know. We'll be doing Silver Linings programs again next year, but we're going to give them a different name, different to Silver Linings. And I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today. And for me, this is the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. And I pay my respects to their spirits, ancestors, elders, and community members past and present. And I extend that to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who might be joining us today or watching this video. And I invite you to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that you're on by posting their name in the chat window. So I'm Christine Healy. I'm the ENVi president this year. And it's been really great to be able to bring these programs and share our learnings with you. So 2020 was the year that kept on giving. And it was really interesting creating the little list of things that have happened this year. So bushfires, Megxit, Brexit, impeachment, Parasite, no Summer Olympics, Black Lives Matter was massive this year. I'm speaking from Kamala when she was doing the presidential or the vice presidential debate. Zoom, of course, a lot of us had never heard of Zoom really before. Don't date a Daryl, that was big. NASA, SpaceX, murder hornets, donut days. It's great to have lots of donut days in Melbourne. The Twitter hacks that happened, no Victorian football, that was bizarre. The Beirut explosion, and Vincent Namatjira winning the Archibald Prize. And people that we lost this year, so RBG, Helen Reddy, Eddie Van Halen, Chadwick Boseman, Susan Ryan, Kim Jong-un, remember that? So that wasn't true, so we can cross him off the list. He's actually still alive. Kobe Bryant, Tim Brooke Taylor, that was really sad. I grew up on the goodies. John Lewis, Olivia de Havilland, Kelly Preston. There's a great list of people, and Ennio Morricone, of course, just to name a few. So normally at this time of year, we would be hosting our Traveller's Tales, but no one had any tales to tell this year. So instead, for this program, we've lined up a few guest speakers to share their good, bad and ugly for the year, just to get the conversation rolling. And it would be great to hear from everybody about what has been fantastic, what has been terrible about this year. So we're hoping that this one's more of a conversation than some of the others have been, and not just straight up presentations. So in this session today, we have, like I said, arranged a couple of speakers I've warmed up some people to begin with, and we have Emma Fellows Cook, the Education Program Leader at Coal Creek Community Park and Museum, Stephanie Rosestone, Engagement Learning and Programs Manager at National War Museum. I love seeing what people's titles are. Lucy Makuti, Gallery Programs Officer, and her colleague Antoinette Zima, the Arts and Culture Development Manager at Mildura Arts Centre. That's been the other really exciting thing about this year, being able to get in regional people. And Lisa Phillips has just agreed to share with us, and Lisa is the Head of Education at the Jewish Holocaust Centre. So to get started, I'm going to handball. I hope you've all got a drink, and that we can all cheers the end of the year together at the end. But if we could please start with Emma, if you're happy to kick us off with your good, bad and good,
Yeah,
bad,
of
and
course I
ugly.
can. So what I've done, instead of doing a PowerPoint, I just thought I'd sort of have a bit of a chat. So yeah, I'm Emma Fellows Cook, and I'm the education program leader down at Coal Creek Community Park and Museum, which is down in Corranborough, South Gippsland. So if you haven't visited us, we're basically a heritage village with a collection of both heritage and replica buildings. We've got a massive collection from farm machinery to everyday items. And I've been in my role about 8 years now, and I've actually done a decade at Coal Creek now, having previously taught in the UK. So as you can tell from my accent, I'm a Yorkshire lass, and I'm going to be actually a bit of a Yorkshire rebel, just like the Pilgrimage of Grace or the miners from my area. And I'm going to start with the ugly. So my official role is really that of a team leader, but COVID brought that to an end right at the start of the pandemic, when I returned off a week's leave to cancelled school bookings and having to tell my team of staff there was no work for them because there was no schools coming in, and being told to work from home. So like everybody else, I was reeling. I was thinking, how can I keep the education program going with no schools? So here comes the bad. Okay, my first thought sat at home were, oh, let's pump some resources out. Let's make some resources. Let's make some worksheets and email them to the schools, just what they needed, not more emails. So, and a learning style that's really not that engaging either. So really that's when the good for me began to happen. And really it was via you guys, and it's been brilliant for me being able to access ENVi and the Silver Lining events online, because I'm rural, I've got young kids, I can't get into Melbourne very easily. So I started hearing from places like ENVi that they've been surveying teachers and really wanted virtual experiences that students could access from home. So thought to myself, if I could bring the school life that is the major part of our education program, is school life from the 1880s, into the virtual world and make it a really interactive experience, then, you know, let's see if I could do it. So I set myself quite a big task, as most of us have this year. So as restrictions began to ease in rural, and that was really fortunate for me, I could get back into the museum. And I suggested that if I could make the IT work, so yes, I had to become an IT guru, like many of you probably, we could beam virtual old lessons from the old schoolhouse, and this is exactly what I did. So in I went, with a mobile phone and a laptop and an 1880s costume and a pencil and a slate. So I'm just going to show you a picture of me in my classroom. Here we go. So that's me, all a bit weird in a classroom from the turn of the century with my laptop and my mobile phone and everything. But that's how I started off. So there I am. So what I started doing is, obviously the kids were at home to start with, and I wanted to interact. So I started doing the hand inspections to the blank screen. Show me your hands. Are your hands clean? Are your fingernails clean? Let's have a look. Hoping that they're doing it the other side of the screen, because obviously you haven't got a clue. And then once they were back in school, it was a lot easier to interact and get virtual volunteers to stand at the front and touch the toes for the cane and do all that sort of stuff, which was good fun. Around the same time for me, a bit of a lifeline came in, where the Department of Ed launched ARC, their online platform. And as kind of a solo operator, because I've got no team anymore, this allowed me to advertise my programs and set up Webex. So I didn't have to pay for subscriptions, because I was lucky I was in a role, we didn't have any money. So it gave me a forum to work on, and that really was being through an SPP partner. So Webex for me, and probably you, was like a vertical learning curve. I'd never taught online. I'd had meetings, but I'd not taught. And thanks to Sam Cunningham at the Department of Ed, she was just amazing. She took me through everything. She even sat through one of my sessions and really helped with that. So since launching at the start of August, I've had about 1,300 students through, which I'm pretty pleased with, because I'm only doing 2 sessions a week on a Thursday, because I only work 2 days a week. I realised pretty much soon not to do too much because I was beginning to burn out, frankly. And I capped it at 2 virtual lessons a week, and basically demand outstripped supply. And I had a bit of a waiting list going on, people waiting for the next lot of lessons to be released. So it's been pretty good. And at this point, we've not charged. We've kept it fee free, and used it as a bit of a marketing tool for my employer, South Gippsland Shire Council, because the majority of schools that have been in attendance have not visited the park before. In fact, I think it's about 95% are new schools to the Coal Creek Education Programme, which I'm actually absolutely stoked with, because it's increased my emailing list no end. So as for 2021, I really don't know. I'm waiting for the powers that be to decide whether we can run some on-site programs, but obviously they're going to look very different if we do. And from 2021 also, we're going to start to try and cover our costs and ask for a small fee for virtual lessons. So that's me this year.
Wow, that's fantastic, Emma. I just love your photograph. Yeah, of you in the costume with the technology. It's just so beautiful. So yeah, there's a few things that I think people are going to be able to relate to in there about burnout.
Oh, yeah. It is a major thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you're flying solo and you've nobody to bounce things off, it's hard.
Absolutely. So I'm glad that you were able to connect with us and get some ideas for virtual programs and things. Fantastic to have a waiting list of lessons, people actually waiting for your program, and that you could still offer them for free, and that you were able to attract such a large new audience. Are they things that resonated for other people and their experience as well? Yeah, a little bit, some. Did anyone have questions for Emma or anything that they'd like to add in relation to Emma's presentation, just so that we can be a bit more interactive as we're going along? Well, congratulations for Emma, because she's come back from her burnout and here talking to us. No, we're all muted. Okay. Yep. That's okay.
No problem. Thanks.
I have a question. I don't find Webex really user-friendly. Like we've done virtual workshops on a number of different platforms, and I actually found I really like Zoom, but I'm not so enamored with Webex and Teams and some of the other ones when we're working with different schools, and I just wondered what other people thought.
My reason for Webex was one, I was getting the subscription paid, which was a major motivator, but 2, I was told right at the beginning back when we had a discussion actually on this forum that some schools weren't allowed to use Zoom. I don't know whether that's changed since, but that's why I headed down the Webex one, and I just found it is clunky, but the more I used it, I just got used to it. So yeah.
Emma, did you ever, so were you always addressing classes? So you could see the class, the students sitting there?
No. So when I started, it was in and out. So I just got this all started and we went into the second lockdown. The kids were all sent home. So yeah. I started with just the kids at home with their parents talking to a blank screen. That was probably, I'm getting a few nods out there. People maybe did the same. And then and then some became mixed classes actually, where teachers had got kids of emergency services workers or whatever like that who were still attending school. So I could see like a handful in the classroom. And that was quite nice because sometimes the teachers would give me some names of volunteers that I could call the names out.
Yeah.
And then when the kids got back to school, then we went to the whole thing where sometimes I'd have like a full grade of like 6 classes. And that's where you just have to manage your Webex and a little bit, especially if you're interacting, like, address the name of a class. And I use teachers saying, class 1B, could you, if you got any questions, ask through your teacher. And we just did it like that. And I really just was flying by the seat of my pants. Yeah. I just have to take every session as I find it, really.
Yeah.
Emma, is Webex just a department, or is it also, like Catholic schools and private schools?
It is, but I've managed to get around that by setting up sort of my when I've had independent schools inquire. What I've done is I've then, because I'm used to Webex, I've just set up a Webex session through as like a one-off. But to be honest, I've had so many department schools inquire. I've just, unless I've had a direct email inquiry, I've kind of just gone down that road. But I will be opening that up more for next year, because actually quite a big amount of my visitation normally would be from sort of Catholic sector.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be working on that for next
And
year.
how did you advertise it? How did you get the message out? I mean,
So
how did you created such a big wait list, I suppose?
yeah, well, it wasn't big, but I certainly got 2 or 3 people wanting the same session sometimes. But yeah, just through this platform called ARC, Peter. So it's an online platform the department set up to advertise professional development online sessions that I was put onto through SPP. And you basically, once you're in their system, you set up an event, it goes through their moderator, and then all the teaching, you can teach, I set it up so only one school can book it per session. Just that's more manageable for me. You can do it with more if you wanted, and that way then I can find out their email address through the system and can contact them and have a bit more of a personal engagement with that school and find out what they need. But it automatically books them in and sets up the Webex event and everything. So for me, that was brilliant, because I just didn't have the time to be doing loads of admin and trying to fit it all in.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So what was the most interesting facts that students learned this year about Cold Creek?
Oh, the most interesting fact. I think the like the when the cane, they always like that. It also makes them giggle or makes them sit up nice and straight. Yeah, when they're in there. And it's been very, very different. So I think one of the things is schools have brought them on my virtual excursion. So they've had a virtual camp day and brought them to me on their virtual camp. I really love that. And I suppose that's just me being able to say, we're down here in Gippsland and, come and visit us when you can. I think that's been a takeaway,
Oh, that's lovely. Well, it sounds like you've pivoted really well into this year. Well, thank you, Emma. That's fantastic. So we'll go on to Stephanie, our next person. So thank you, Stephanie. I believe you've got pictures.
I do have pictures.
About pictures.
Well, it's interesting to follow on from Emma, and nice to hear what she was doing, because I was in a slightly different position where I had left after 10 years at Sovereign Hill doing very similar things to what Emma was doing. And I'd started in this new role, which was a lot broader. And so for me, it was, I was only 4 or 5 months into the job, and it was a real change, I guess, and really threw things up in the air. So I'll open some pictures here. So give me a nod when you can see that.
Yep, we can see it.
Great. So when COVID hit, I had just developed a whole festival of programs, public programs, which was a real new thing for me, quite big. Got everything lined up, almost had the brochure at the printers, and of course everything got cancelled. And I think, what Emma was talking about, the burnout, I think some of the burnout for me was that sort of uncertainty and the decision-making fatigue in such a volatile environment. So that was really, really something that I really took away from it. And it was interesting because I was looking at this idea of like flying into the unknown, like all of a sudden you're going to try something new, which is exciting. And, that was certainly a really good side of it, was the opportunity to try something new, take risks. The support for getting things online or doing things a bit differently was really great. But it was funny because I was actually going to put some background music to this, some Frozen Disney background music. If anyone's got little kids, I certainly do. But then I thought, oh, well, there's a perfect example, because I probably can't do that because of copyright. And they're the kind of things that you're suddenly faced with thinking all the time at the moment. So if you do have little kids and you know the song, you can have it going in your head right now. So the festival of events that I had organised, we turned it into a website. So we had a we were going to have 2 on-site exhibitions, which got turned into 1 digital exhibition. And the program of events got turned into this programming website. And a few things, I've just taken this off the web today, so a few things are down, but we also had courses and live events, live online events as well. So that was really, really interesting, the process of turning it into this website and working with the website designers and everything, but also working with the artists. So for this, I had a lot of artists engaged to deliver programs, hands-on craft kind of programs, and for them to go into an online platform was actually, for some of them, was a bit of a change, and I'd lost a few that didn't want to go into the online platform and picked up a few others. But I thought I'd show this as an example of one of the artists that agreed to stay on and do a virtual course, so an online course, and she didn't have the equipment. Some of them I had, she was based in Geelong, so we were able to bring her in when restrictions allowed to actually film her in Geelong. I had some in Melbourne, and I ended up like purchasing vlogging kits and sending it to them in the mail and hoping the videos turned out all right and that sort of thing. So that was really interesting, but this was actually one of the artists filming in the museum. So that was an interesting side to that program. This was another program that we did and one of my colleagues really led, which was really exciting and fun, but it sort of threw up all these obstacles we didn't expect, which I'm sure people can relate to. So we decided to put together these literacy resource packs for local schools, and we picked the most disadvantaged schools in the region. And the idea was that we knew that junior children, school children, were probably going to be a bit digital fatigued, and teachers were going to have trouble getting resources to them, and they might not have books in their homes and things like that. So we put together this resource pack of activities based on sort of literacy and fine motor skills and craft and things like that, which was really exciting to do, but there were a few things we didn't anticipate. Oops, sorry. One was just what that would look like to actually put it together. So here you've got bags of wool and bags and rows of wool roving. And so these are 263 individual packs we did. And so actually putting those all together was quite the mountain. We didn't sort of really anticipate how much space that would take up. Which was interesting. And then the other side of it was that when we sent it out to school, when we were prepared to send it out, was just when schools reopened. So we had planned to have this wonderful kit to send home to kids that they could have at home. And then all of a sudden they were back at school anyway. So the timing wasn't great, but it kind of worked out. It meant that the teachers got to use it with the students in the classroom, like you can see here. And also they were able to use it the way they wanted. So they could do it as a class activity, or they could send it home as a send home activity, but each kid got a pack. That also didn't always work. So we had a few that found activities on the challenging side, or perhaps no, they just went down their own path. But that was quite fun to see those in use. So this was what I wanted to show was one of the other sides of doing all these things at home, which was fun, and you got to do some interesting things and be around your family more too, which I really liked. But it was also interesting to try and put things together. So we did a series of stop motion craft kind of films, and I'm not sure if this is going to play for me or if I'm sharing sound anyway. Can you hear sound? No?
No. So when you hit share, there's a little option for sound.
I will try that. See if it's going to let me do it.
You might need to stop sharing and then reshare.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. You don't, it's music, but you know, we'll see if it works this time. But so this was a stop motion video that we put together, and it was really good fun to do, but it's really interesting to see the flip side of actually putting it together, which I will show you in a moment. Anyway, anyway, I got that music stuck in my head for weeks, as you can imagine, trying to edit that movie. Oh gosh, there it goes again. But, you know, this took a lot of publishing, and, you know, I was really lucky, made use of some resources I had at home, in that I had some editing software because my husband's a graphic designer and things. So I was, you know, some of those things you just made the most of what you could. But it didn't always turn out in the right way. So we were trying to make a friendship band, and goodness, kneeling down on the ground, trying to move this weave a friendship band one frame at a time was one of those things that sounded like a good idea at the time, but was quite painful to do. And then I was really disappointed when I finished it, because it kind of looks like a creepy spider just creeping around the around the screen, which didn't quite turn out the way that we wanted it to do. But, you know, you just kind of had to roll with it. And I think talking about one of the good things is that people were really forgiving of the kind of mistakes and funny things that happened. So that was a good side of that. But also there was some behind the scenes, so this is actually that video under production, with my husband hanging out, keeping me company, because I was doing this in the middle of the night, because that's the only time the house was quiet. He's got a glass of wine there, and there's the dog that we had to keep pushing out of the frame because he really wanted to get in close. So yeah, while we're trying to put across these polished videos and things, I think what happens in the background was pretty amusing at times. And even one of my children got hold of some of the resources and made their own fun out of it too. So, you know, this is the kind of flip side of what happens when you're working at home. But, you know, there were really good things to this year. I had a lot of fun trying to find new solutions to things. We missed out on volunteers week for our volunteers, and so we gave them some woolly biscuits. And there were lots of opportunities like that were really good, fun. But yeah, it had its challenges, and certainly that sort of constant pressure of trying to work within a new environment and the unknown, I think was yeah, a challenge. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was fantastic. I loved that picture with all of the items, all of the packs that you had for school, like care packages that you were going to send out. It was so beautiful. And there were so many of them. That was super impressive. And the video sounds, I also pivoted to video, and one of the best things I found was YouTube have a library of sounds that you can download for free. And I've spent quite a bit of time in that library listening to music. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. And I too was grateful that people were forgiving with what it was that you did produce, because some of our videos were excellent. Some of them were really, really good. And then there were moments that, you know, that they were okay because of the moment. But they were still very heartfelt and tender, and it was really lovely to be able to share that, where in ordinary circumstances they might not fly, because, you know, we're all places of excellence and, you know, having everything be absolutely perfect. But your video was perfect. It was so beautiful. And you also reminded me in your pictures of your home, another acronym that has come up this year, WFH. You know, I wouldn't have known what that was before. So working from home, and of course volunteers. So it's been really difficult for them this year as well. Yeah. Thank you. And decision-making fatigue, boy, didn't we all have that? Do you have questions that you'd like to ask Stephanie about her programs and what she was doing this year, and some of the challenges that, how she's managed those? Just unmute yourself and talk, please.
Hi.
Hello.
Steph, so you mainly focused on junior school
primary age kids? Did you do any, were you able to get anything with the secondary school kids?
With the resource packs, we focused on junior primary just because we felt that was an area where there would be a greater need, and perhaps they wouldn't, I guess, have as many opportunities that would suit their needs. So for the resource packs, it was actually prep students only we sent it to. But we did, so with the We the Makers Create website, that was partly public programs, but it was also designed to be able to, there was a mini makers section that had those videos, which had a range that was suitable for sort of different ages, and the courses were suitable for secondary students and so on. But we didn't do targeted programs, and we didn't do any virtual excursions or anything like that.
So were you able to track who logged into your programs? I mean, were they free, or were they still paid for, or?
Oh, the courses and the website, that was all free to access. We do have details of sort of people that registered for them. We don't know exactly how many sort of schools got involved in it, but we were also going through a period of actually, part of the time we spent during this year was actually redoing our schools programs and creating them. So actually for schools, we were doing more work behind the scenes than we were sort of forward facing. Yeah. Cool. How did I get that music out of my head? Oh, I don't know.
I'm a music teacher, so yeah, welcome to my life.
It was good fun. I did like picking the music. That was really fun. I think that one was called like Dancing Chicken or something. I don't remember. A bit strange, but yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
I've got a comment. I loved your stop motion video, Steph. And I wonder how many, screen grabs you needed or how many photographs you needed to put that together. And then I've also got a comment more on, I think the silver lining of this time is that we've been able to produce these kind of online video content and digital resources, and in the past organizations such as myself wouldn't have been able to, because we've not had the equipment or the professional output that we would like to. And I think this is a real benefit from this time, that we've been able to have that more unpolished material go up, and it's been accepted and celebrated, so that's really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. That really opens up a lot of opportunities. And with the photos, gosh, it was hundreds, particularly that frame where you saw the friendship band being made. I think that we only did one take, and I think it took like 2 hours to photograph, because each individual movement was one photo, and you had to sort of put it in, then get your hands out of the shot and then take it. And yeah, so that was and I think that's been a bit of a theme too, is having a great idea, but then you dive into it, and sometimes it can become not as good an idea as you thought it was at the time.
So you don't recommend it?
Look, I love stop motion. I think it is something that you can do that can look really good quite easily. And so that really worked for us in terms of doing craft activities. I think they can, as a live video, can sometimes they more easily look a bit unpolished and harder to see. So in that way it worked really well. But yeah, it was not something that I'd do unless I sort of had the time. Like, I was making the most of that opportunity to sort of pivot and be at home and doing things. But if I was back in the museum trying to run live programs and things like that, I'm not sure that we'd be doing it.
Yeah, that certainly is one of the advantages of this year, that we've been able to be creative and think of different ways to present our programs and do things and try things out, which has been sometimes more difficult than what you anticipated. But sometimes it's just, I think we're so fortunate to work in roles that do allow for us to have that creativity and, to bring so much joy and interest to our work and what it is that we do. Certainly one of the things I like most about being a gallery educator. Yeah. Thank you. Well, congratulations, Stephanie and Emma, for having made it through 2020. Let's hear how Lucy and Antoinette got on.
Thanks. Go, Antoinette.
So
It's
Lucy
great
Wynn
delegation,
from Mildura
isn't
Arts
she?
Centre.
Okay, thanks everyone. And look, it's very similar stories. I'm also just trying to share my screen. Oh, hopefully that's working.
Yes, it's working. Thank you.
There we go. So Mildura Arts Centre, we're a multifaceted regional arts venue. So we've got a theatre through to a gallery to a historic house, sculpture park. So really, like many of you guys, and we're all hearing the same stories, we all had to pivot quickly to really create new programs where we could connect with our audiences and engage with them, and also not only entertaining them, but giving them an opportunity to really experience what they would experience when they're at our venues, but from their homes. So that was part of our aim. So of course, connecting, engaging, but also to really allow and support our local arts industry, whether they're musicians or artists or exhibitions on our walls. So from there, we created a suite of programs, from exhibition tours, which provided an insight from the curator or the artist, virtual tours of our historic house and of our theatre, so backstage tours, social drawing at home, which is what Lucy delivered, which is a play on our social drawing or journaling events that we would have and host monthly in our venue. These took to Facebook and YouTube, and we'll share some hilarious stories on that a little bit later. We went from workshops, school holiday activities with our local arts educators, or even we had planned to do Mildura Zine Fair, and that was a partnership with the Sticky Institute in Melbourne. So they actually created some online workshops, which were great for not only any age adult session doing it at home with kids, or even schools taking it on board, and students as well. A suite of education resources as well, from sculpture sleuths on our lawns once the restrictions eased and people could get outdoors again, through to our arts industry context document. But we also looked at seeing what else was out there, and colleagues within the performing arts industry were certainly also offering lots of different things as well. So we made it all available on our website, so easily accessible. And then we also converted our stage, typically in our theatre, into a production studio. So initially we kicked off producing some of these at home, but once we were allowed to get back into the building, our stage became our production studio, delivering our live streamed music events, which featured local musicians, also a little in conversation, right through to social drawing or filming our artists doing these workshops. So creating that digital setting really created a completely different atmosphere. If you're doing a music gig, you usually you take the vibe of the audience. They drive you to perform, and when there's no interaction from anyone else in the room, it certainly threw a lot of our performers off. Right through to how one may conduct an activity. So if you're doing social drawing, it's how perhaps you're setting out your layout, and of course with cameras and things like that. So that always created lots of excitement. Copyright, also our favourite topic, whether it's music copyright or copyright of what you're actually delivering. It's certainly a challenging space, but certainly COVID allowed us to do a lot more than what you would normally be able to do. But really we were able to deliver quite a lot of these just by the fact that we had such a passionate team behind it. They were willing to be creative, to give something a go. We drew on the skills that we had in-house, whether they were photographers or graphic designers or educators, working with lighting technicians and sound technicians. So bringing all that together to actually deliver a lot of these programs. And also, the ability to continually improve when you have technical glitches. There is no doubt that Facebook and YouTube or any delivery form will always create some of them. So yeah, I think every time we still go on to do something on Facebook, there's always a new update. So it's relearning it every time we do it. But that's really, I suppose, central in terms of marketing comms, and that digital online content is really taken centre stage, and being very savvy with that. Certainly a big part of it. and audience reach. You know, I think audience reach for what we're doing in terms of whether it was any of our programs, social drawing or a video feed like Backstage Pass or our Twilight events, we're reaching audiences beyond our local group. It was going national or international in some cases. So I think some of our performances, we could have 400 people to, we're having 8,000 views live. So completely quite extraordinary, those numbers. Or for social drawing on an afternoon with Lucy, when Lucy's presenting, there was the traditional group of 10 that would come along, that they were now gaining people from Adelaide or Melbourne or Renmark or Swan Hill also jumping in on board.
And Scotland. Scotland,
that's right, there was Scotland in there. But Lucy, why don't you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so that it was, as Antoinette said, it's been a real learning curve because we still wanted to engage the community, and we're really big with community engagement, as many of us have already said. So public programs and keeping in touch with people, COVID kind of, has been a bit of a party pooper, and that's, probably the ugly in that we weren't as connected as we, would normally be or like to be. So social drawing, as Antoinette mentioned, used to happen here once a month. We would alternate social drawing, social journaling, and then once COVID hit, we weren't able to do that anymore, as especially people in Melbourne would understand and appreciate that. Yeah, there was no interaction at all allowed, so we then decided, okay, let's try Facebook Live, which initially I was recording myself from home in my home studio, until there was a bit of an ugly moment. It's probably a bad moment, ugly moment, where I had set everything up and Facebook, being Facebook, changed itself. I don't even know what happened. It was something, and I was by myself at home, and Antoinette and Helen Piscaneri, our marketing development manager, were watching from home, horrified when I couldn't hook up through my laptop. So I ended up doing the whole session, which was, I don't know, I think we were doing an hour then, in and out, with my selfie stick with one hand and doing the program with the other. So it was quite comical. So we learnt a lot in that session, that perhaps someone could be, perhaps we should kind of upgrade and have someone filming me. So for the next session, actually no, I was still going to go ahead and do it myself. And Antoinette was able to come into my space. We were socially distanced and all that sort of stuff. And then we had another tech fail. So she ended up filming me again, holding her mobile phone on her knees for the whole session, with me presenting, acting like everything was fine. And in the meantime, my cat had kind of done a bit of a double take and realised Antoinette was in the room and sort of fled and, I don't know, did some pinging around the studio. So so then we kind of, we had began by that stage. I think we had began the Backstage Pass on the stage. So that was how I reluctantly gave up my home studio and came into the space for it to be more professionally produced, which it is now. So, which is great. And I think Peter, you asked me, how did the Scots find out about our programs? I have a colleague who lives in Scotland, or someone who I've worked with before, and the session that I did was on collage, which was a favourite of theirs, so they picked that up. But certainly it has gone. Some of them, not all of them, have been able to share, and they do go live. So someone just said they must have been up late. So it does go live, but then the video, Facebook, you can then save the video into the page, so people can watch that at any time, and the same with YouTube. which is, you know, it has been great. The only thing really is that it's a one-way. So you're presenting, you have no idea who's joining. Because I'm presenting, I'm supposed to be concentrating on what I'm doing, and that's why we have either Antoinette or Helen present, responding to comments, because people like to, still like to, say hi and see what people are doing. But it's been a learning curve.
Apart from Scotland, you had other people involved as well, and you grew your audiences. How did they find out? Was that just like, socials, or how did the story get out?
How to get out? Sharing. We've got I don't know how many we have following our page at the moment, Antoinette. Quite a few.
About 5,000 following our page.
For our Facebook page. And Antoinette mentioned Backstage Pass, which was a way for us to engage and give people, local musicians, a chance to play for audiences, and that really has been super popular with locals, and also throughout Australia. We've got so from those, we've people are tuning in, and with a Facebook page, you can kind of click on a little notification that every time you go live, they get a notification at their end, and they can choose to tune in or not if you subscribe. So just sharing, and then people sharing, and all that sort of things. It doesn't cost. I always say to people, it doesn't cost anything to share on social media, and it's a really good way to support people. Getting their programs and their work out, just being supportive, as it doesn't have to cost $1 million to advertise. If you're supporting each other, that's a good way to get the word out about programs.
I loved your education resources, especially how to make a zine. Yeah, I did like them, Lucy. Especially the one, How to Make a Zine by Dr. Jess Eggy.
Yes, and Sam. Yeah.
So that was very cute.
It is really cool.
Yeah, the illustrations in that looks beautiful. And it sounds like you have become a YouTube and Facebook expert through all of this as well. Do you have
Not me.
Yeah, that was pretty mean of Facebook to update the layout of their feed. And
all the time.
Partway through your program. Must have really given you the horrors. But to reach so many different people, like Emma, to have such a big, new audience that you're addressing, that's really exciting. So it's opened up, sounds like it's opened up all sorts of possibilities for you in the way that you work and what it is that you're doing. And you mentioned your cat. I love
my kitty.
I love mentioning my cats whenever I get a chance to. It's been lovely being able to share my cats from home. I've enjoyed that part of COVID as well.
I think your cats are much more well behaved than my cat.
Oh no, my cats have been very naughty lately.
It was kind of like a mid thing, and then she realised Antoinette was was in the same space as her, and it was a stranger, and yeah, she kind of was horrified.
Yeah, that's been interesting with some of the limitations around being able to move around and socially distancing, and that when you've been by yourself and you're trying to kind of present a program and do things and you can't get help, and you're not allowed to go to the shops and buy a new microphone, and the sorts of resources and that we might normally be able to access, you're kind of just in it by yourself, which I think is part of why people were so forgiving of some of the content. But your pictures were beautifully produced, and there were some lovely images there. So it looks like you've got the experts in as well, or you've become experts through all of this.
Learning, constant learning. Learning is the word.
It is, isn't it? And I suppose as educators, we know that that's what we need to model as well. And that's what we're interested in, and why we like to do things like this, to find out what other people are doing and being able to improve and grow what it is that we do.
Yeah. Can I just follow that up, Christine? I'm just knocked out by how creative these programs are, and the bravery behind them, all of them, right, to do them. And they really require an incredible amount of initiative and bravado, and preparedness to fail. Are the rest of, and I'm asking everyone, are the rest of your organisations doing the same things that you are doing? Have they got the same sort of initiative, or, you know, have you really increased the profile of education within your institutions? You know, I'm interested in any comments. You know,
that resonates strongly with the Jewish Holocaust Centre. Certainly, it's always had a good profile, but I think we've been the part of the museum that's been very out there and been able to be seen because we have pivoted so much to a virtual platform.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think from within my organisation, I feel like I was the only one still producing content and carrying our profile during that whole lockdown period.
Yeah, we've really been able to fill that gap in, you know, while we're not able to have visitors, of engaging with the public and thinking about the strategies that we use as educators to be able to engage with people and do it in really novel ways, and the ways that are quite personable as well, and not just kind of mass produced.
It's also a bit.
Yeah, go on, Stephanie.
I was going to say, I think it's also a bit being, you know, I know a few of us are teachers too as background, and I think that sort of resourcefulness as well. Like I know for us, you know, the education area was the one that first produced stuff because we just, you know, pulled the resources out of our cupboard and just like made something up, you know, and got it out there. We were fortunate that, you know, the exhibitions team put on a really great digital exhibition, which is what our programs bounced off. So that worked really well. But certainly that sort of adaptability and the quick fire something out, yeah, I think that's certainly, you know, that trait of doing things yourself and making do and not having necessarily a marketing department behind you or a, you know, production department behind you, and just doing what you can at home. I think it's a bit of a educator teacher quality.
Yeah, we should all be recognised for that.
It's a lot easier to do when you've just got a classroom with a group of kids rather than, you know, a whole internet group of people watching you. So I just think it's incredibly brave and gutsy, you know.
I was interested, thanks to all the people who spoke, I was interested in asking all of them really, how much do you think you will continue with these online programs into the future, you know, as COVID restrictions are eased? Are the benefits of the reach useful to you, do you think?
We'll definitely keep ours going. I mean, I've had schools from Wangaratta that I've never visited down our way, so it's really opened, like Lucy was saying, it's opening the reach up, so we'll certainly definitely keep an element of it. Obviously it's never going to replace that real hands-on face-to-face learning, but it's definitely going to have its place for us.
I think for us, like we've certainly got some skills and resources that we'll take forward, and I think certainly having some keeping up an online presence and some online learning resources is definitely a priority. But I'm also really conscious of being really realistic about what's achievable when we are back delivering face-to-face. Like we're quite a small team, and the only reason we're able to do a lot of this was because that was what we could focus on rather than on actual program delivery. So I think it wouldn't be for a lack of desire to do more of this or a lack of perceived value. It would be just time and resources, I think.
Yeah, that's the corner you kind of paint yourself into, because you're producing a whole new, you know, a whole new lot of work, a whole new workload. And so how do you continue with what it was, with what you were doing, and then add this new stuff in the same time frame that you've got? I'm looking next year at doing half of my programs online and half of them face-to-face. So for my monthly programs, for example, one month people will come to the gallery, the next month it will be an online program, the following month it'll be in the gallery. And so hoping to engage people that can't make it to the gallery, and yet have some sort of continuity with people that can come to the gallery. And hopefully those two offerings will kind of complement one another. So, and also we don't know when, you know, the third wave's going to come, or we don't know if we're going to be in this situation. And it's like, we just need to be prepared for it. ready to go back to what it is that we were doing or to try something different again. But I'd really like to hear from Lisa about your good, bad and ugly as well.
Oh,
So
do we have time? There's so much to say, and everybody else's presentations have really resonated, particularly Steph, when you talked about uncertainty, because my initial reaction was we were going into uncertainty anyhow, because our museum at the Jewish Holocaust Centre is going through a whole redevelopment. So we were meant to be closing our doors at the end of term 1 and going to a temporary site where the only part of the museum that was going to be functioning was the education programs. Had created a handling collection, was in the process of about to retrain all the volunteers on the Sunday where we had the call that we were closing. And it certainly was actually a bit of relief at the beginning that I didn't have to go into that uncertainty of doing a program that wasn't tried and tested. But there was so much silver lining in that, because it allowed us to stop, allowed us to think, and that luxury of time of not delivering programs to actually sit down and reflect about what we're doing. Like everybody else, we've created a virtual platform that didn't exist before, with resources that have been really welcomed by I thought I had it up, but I don't have it up. But you can actually look at our virtual learning site if you're interested. We were able to create, I think, 3 amazing programs from that. One is Ask a Survivor, which was recognised. Thank you very much for being a good interactive. And it was, I suppose the survivor testimony is such an important part of visiting the museum. And the question that's always asked to me is, what are you going to do when there's no longer survivors? So for the last 7 years, I've been collecting testimony where there are 18 common questions that students ask survivors. And it doesn't matter, they come up virtually every single session. So we took these 18 questions and have interviewed the survivors answering these common questions. And the idea was that we'd use 10 minutes of testimony and get the students then to choose answers. Now, on my last day of program, which was on Friday the 13th of March, etched in my memory, was the first time in the history at the Jewish Holocaust Centre that we told the survivors not to come. We actually felt that it was too dangerous to have these elderly people exposed to school students. It was, you know, that uncertainty. So I had a PowerPoint version of Ask a Survivor, and we put it up and we said, okay, we played the testimony and we asked students to choose, and it was a bit of a thud. So something that I'd been working on for sort of 7 years didn't have the oomph or the power that I thought it was going to have. Anyhow, we went into lockdown, and then we had the idea that instead of leading with testimony and getting students to ask the survivor, we decided let it be like a choose your own adventure. So we asked the students to lead with questions, and we've made it so that we've taken 4 of the 30 testimonies we've got with 4 of the survivors, and we've created this create your own adventure almost style of learning, where the students can choose from different categories the types of questions that they ask. And it's the feedback from the teachers that come annually to the centre has been really, really wonderful. We also, because we were closing our museum, one of our volunteers had a 3D camera. So he actually had filmed the museum to preserve it as part of the memory of what was as we go through this whole development. And as one of the things that I've been developing is a handling collection and a program to go alongside that for our new temporary site. We basically took the digitised images and information that we had collected, and we inserted all of these into the actual virtual museum. So now you can go on a virtual museum tour. So some of the schools that visit annually said that they loved it because instead of being rushed through the museum, they felt that they were able to have the opportunity to look and observe. And then we also did a whole lot of other things. Everything's been supported with scaffolded with advice. I think one of the things that then we pivoted towards doing is the virtual workshop. And I can't tell you how valuable these sessions have been. They were really valuable for really questioning what we were doing, going into what direction, seeing where everybody else was at, and actually affirming the things that we were doing. So thank you very much for running these sessions. They've been an incredible support, except Ben's session, which made me think, why are they getting 6,000 students in term 2? And we were really struggling at that stage. And I think it's partly because we are dealing with really difficult content. I think not, I think it's the nature of dealing with the Holocaust. We are so concerned about taking students safely in and safely out as part of our programming. How are we going to do that in a safe way? And so we really had to develop a model of a virtual workshop that did allow for that safe delivery of content and making sure that it was done in a way that was going to be meaningful and impactful, but not traumatizing. One of our huge challenges is survivors, most of them are either late 80s or 90s, was getting them equipped with using Zoom, using virtual platforms. And so we were really lucky in the beginning. That just happened that one survivor was doing rehab through the hospital and he was good on Zoom, so we began to use him and bringing in our survivors in to actually interact with the students. And that's been a real bonus because Andrew said about touching things. I don't feel confident in having a survivor in the classroom or with students until we have some resolution of where we're going with COVID. So we're busy going around now training our survivors with iPads and having different volunteers come and work with them to get them equipped so they'll be able to engage with this platform. And I think that's been one of the hardest things for the community, the volunteers and the survivors in the community with the Jewish Holocaust Centre, not having that weekly purpose of coming in and speaking to students. And that's been problematic, but for those who have been capable of doing it, it's been so powerful. And like others, like what Lucy was saying as well, that we've been able to go all around Australia to the Northern Territory to students that haven't had that opportunity to access and meet a survivor, and it's still really powerful and personable, even through using the virtual platform. So a lot happening, but it's been mainly positive, and it's allowed us to really throw out the rule books and lose that rigidity of the confines of the walls and really think and be flexible with your thinking. Fatigued, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, so instead of worrying about people not touching, we're worrying about what's in our backgrounds this year. Yeah, and I love that you've been able to do a choose your own adventure and had access to a 3D camera and started thinking about handling collections and virtual museum tours and things. And it sounds like it's been really successful for a museum. And congratulations on winning an award as well. So well done. Bravo, yeah. And talking about dealing with difficult content safely, that sounds like a good segue into maybe a program that we could offer in 2021. So we might come back to you, Lisa, to be part of a panel to talk. I think that would be a good topic for us to talk about next year. So we've gone over time. So unless anyone has anything that they would particularly like to add, now's your moment. Andrew's arrived at his destination. You're on mute, Andrew.
There we go. Yeah, no, just wheeling the bin in now.
Oh.
You can hear, but it's beautiful. I'll show you.
camera. Where are we?
Thank you, Alice. Thank you for joining us.
There we go. There's Lake Eildon.
Oh, very nice.
Very nice. Yeah. Okay. So thanks. That made it made the trip a bit shorter, actually.
Good. Well,
okay.
Thank you. Did anyone else particularly want to add anything else? No? Well, in that case, then I'm going to wrap up our Silver Lining series for 2020. And I'd like to thank everybody that has come along to our programs or watched them online or participated in our Facebook chats. Please continue to share information. It's really good to be able to have these conversations and hear about what other people are doing and be able to support one another. So on behalf of ENVi, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and I hope that you get to have a really relaxing summer break. So thank you, and we will see you in, oh, Peter's waving.
One last comment. Look, thanks to everyone for their generous performances tonight. They were just absolutely fantastic. But also, look, thank you to Christine, because you've run a really, really fantastic program for ENVi this year that has involved a lot more people and has involved the sort of creativity and gutsiness and initiatives that I was talking about before. So good on you. Well done.
Thank you very much, Peter. It's been my pleasure. So I'm really looking forward. I'm really looking forward to next year and really being able to get into it. This year really has been crazy. Thank you. I wasn't expecting that. Peter is our lifetime nominee, Achievement Award nominee for a Mug of Victoria this year. So we're also very proud of Pete's achievements as well.
It's really old, really.
Yeah, so let me just deflect back at you, Peter. Congratulations to you.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Have a great time. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.